say you play keyboard, right? That's your main thing.
I try. Yes. Yeah.
And you say you're always the one who sort of like had maybe more of a grasp on the tech stuff than other people. Was there something you had to overcome? Because I've talked to a lot of musicians that get intimidated by the engineering side of things, and they want to source it out, but you feel like you had no choice, and you just, or I don't know, you decided that you really had to learn that.
You know, at first it was a necessity thing where I felt I had to learn it, because we got started on a project like tracking my wife's CD, which actually is up for digital distribution in the UK right now. So that was the first record I started tracking from scratch and finished and mixed it. And that was a huge learning process. It was the first time I set up mics on drums, and you know, just to do that the first time and make sure I get it right. There was another fortunate meeting as well too. The guy who was doing the drums for us became a very good friend, David Nizri, who had played on some big hits out of Israel. He's from Israel, and he knew what was right as far as I'd move the mics around and we'd come in here and listen. He'd say, "No, not yet," and we'd move some more mics around, and then we'd fix this and fix that and EQ that and maybe change things, and until we had good drum sounds. And I wouldn't say they're the best drum sounds I've ever recorded yet, because that was 7 years ago, and I've got better gear now, I've got better ears now. But anyway, it was a learning process with him, and it taught me some of the ins and outs of the drum side of it from day one.
So how long did it take you to finally finish that project?
5 years.
All right, that's awesome.
I was working full-time at the time.
Oh,
I
wow.
wasn't a full-time engineer, and we would do it like once a week, twice a week. Maybe we'd get together and try and do some of that work.
Makes your marriage stronger, I got you.
Yeah.
But the quality must be so vastly different now than it was when you first started. I don't know.
You know, from day one, when I first started doing that, if you would have A-B'd the two sounds, like from what I have now to back then, I would have thought they all sounded great. Now I hear a huge, huge difference. You know, from using just one mic pre to the next mic pre. Back then, I was using some staples that I couldn't get away from, like the Joe Meek stuff. VC1s, studio channels. Great piece of gear. One of the best pieces of gear for the money by far. But now I've got better stuff that's a lot more money, and maybe sometimes you tend to use the more expensive thing because you know you spend a lot more money on it, so you're like, okay, I'm going to use this now. It's really not about that anymore. Now it's about, like, sometimes that old piece of gear, that Joe Meek, even though you can find it on eBay for, say, $350, $400, it's got vibe. It's got color. It's got a thing that, you know, the other pieces of gear don't do. So once in a blue moon, I'll go to the Old Faithful. And, but I do have my favorites.
Okay, good.